Get up, big bunny. Woo! Y'all better get that big bunny up. He in here. Big bunny, big bunny. Got him right here. Yeah, I got it.
Hey YouTube, we're back at it. Took a little hiatus for a second, but we're back. Guys, I got a good treat for you today. I'm joined with the group from the Brotherhood, and we have a topic that I think you all will find very, very interesting. So hang in there with us, and let's get started. Well, folks, here are the guys. We're going to discuss a topic that a lot of people overlook, but when we get together from different places, different states, just different families, we have a tendency to hunt differently based on what we have been taught by, our mentors, our fathers, our uncles, those guys that have really been a part of our growth coming up in the great outdoors. So what we're going to do today, and you guys can follow along at home, what we're going to do today is we're going to break down different strategies on how to pursue and how to harvest a rabbit with a group of people and dogs. Our number one priority would be to be safe, and that's paramount. We have to be safe in everything that we do so we can continue to do it again and again and again. So at the end of the day, that's what we'll be discussing. We'll be discussing as individuals, what move would you make? And we'll discuss why each individual made those different moves in the expectation of getting in position to harvest the rabbit once the dog get the rabbit up and start running. So that's what the objective is today, for us to learn from one another and also from you guys at home, possibly not truly understanding how to do this. I've had a lot of guys kind of contact me and ask me a ton of questions on what is the best way to pursue a rabbit with a group of people and with dogs. There's no one way to do anything, but I do really feel that there are more effective ways, and that's what we're going to try to discuss here today amongst the four of us. For you guys that don't recognize these guys that I'm here with, this group, we're called the Brotherhood. We came together as a group of gentlemen from different states to advance a breeding program that I started here in my kennel. The Pearson Hound is what we've created and what I've created over the years. And all of these gentlemen, we all have one thing in common. Those are the only dogs that we own. We're putting our everything into developing a very good bloodline. And thus far, we've been very, very satisfied. So with no further ado, I'm gonna let you say hello to all the guys. And from that, we'll start pulling up the aerial map of where we hunted this year when we came together. Terrence was not in that group, but it won't really affect what we're doing today. We're going to ask him where he would move as if he was there. So with no further ado, guys, just say hello and we'll start this process.
Hello, everybody. My name is James Lamb. I'm from Clinton, North Carolina.
Hello, everybody. I'm Terrence McGee. I'm from Franklinton, Louisiana.
Hey guys, I'm Don McFadden. I'm from North Little Rock, Arkansas.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pull up these maps. Guys, go to your maps and we're gonna go to the first map. Let me pull it up really quick. Well, not map, guys, page. That's what we're going to be doing. Pulling up the first page. I think we have 5 or 6 to go. Everybody on page?
Yes, sir. Page 1.
Oh, gotcha. Page 1. All right, folks. The significance of this page, I thought I would put this up. And the significance of this page is that even if we're not familiar with a piece of property, or we are familiar with a piece of property, I still like to know where I am and the directions that I'm going. So that compass really is the significance of this particular aerial shot right here. But this entire shot would be the layout of the property that we hunted that particular day. Everybody on page 2?
Yep.
Sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you all can see at home, this is pretty much how things took place that day. Where you see that red vehicle was where we pulled up and to the property, and we offloaded the dogs, and we, continued on in the process of going hunting. And typically, this is an illustration of how we would typically separate ourselves. We kind of put space in between ourselves, and we'll go in a direction or in the direction that we want to start traveling, to cover a piece of property. It doesn't always happen. The dogs will take you elsewhere, but our intents were to go straight across from that vehicle that's there and get down into a bottom that was really, really thick. So those were the intentions. Let's go to page 3, guys. Everybody got page 3 up?
Got it.
Yes.
Sir.
Okay. The only difference between page 2 and 3 is that I put names on the individual icons. And this will be significant because from this point, the guys will move in position based on getting in position to harvest the rabbit. Okay, guys, are we all on 4?
Affirmative. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to act as if the rabbit has been jumped out of the bed. So I will use the color red to illustrate his direction that he's traveling. Okay. Now, at this point, James, would you make a move?
No, I would not. I'll wait to see which direction the rabbit establishes itself.
Okay. I would not make a move either. Terrence, would you make a move at this point?
No, I wouldn't move. I will wait for the rabbit to declare direction.
Okay. How about you, Vaughn?
Yes, I see that the rabbit is heading north, that as illustrated on the screen. So I would position myself perpendicular to where that rabbit is going, to the outside, since I'm the last person on that screen, somewhere about that location.
Okay. Now what we'll do, I'll advance the rabbit on a little further to see to get a true understanding of what direction he may be traveling. Okay. At that point, James, would you make a move?
Yes, I would move east in the direction of where the rabbit just passed me.
Okay, go ahead and move where you would want to set up. Okay. At this point, knowing that he's rolling that way, let me change colors because I was still on red. Erase that a little bit. Okay. I would get somewhere in there. So not moving too much at all. Okay. Terrence, what about you?
Yes, I would replace where we jumped the rabbit at, keeping my a good distance away from you.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now, this is when the discussions will start. As far as individuals, I'm going to be asking, what was your reasoning for moving where you move? So that will somewhat give the audience some understanding of the different perspectives we may have. And then we'll go further along in the process. So James, starting with you, what was your reasoning for moving there?
Well, first, since the rabbit went past me, I would check to see if he moved to my right or my left.
Okay.
From the topo there, it would be going east or west. Once I waited long enough to determine that the rabbit was heading east, then that's why I positioned myself toward the eastern direction, because typically he's going to try to make a circle back to where he jumped.
Okay. All right. As far as where I moved, I was taught this as a young child, falling behind my daddy at the age of 4 or 5 years old, that where he jumped is where he's going to come back to. I would say that's 99% of the time that's what's going to happen. But what I've learned over the years is that you have to have a reliable pack of dogs. Without that pack of dogs, you may not never get back to that point. So if you have faith in your dogs, this really works with a one person hunt. If you're out there by yourself, if you just get right in that location where that rabbit jumps, and your dogs can circle that rabbit 99.9% of the time, he's going to come right back there. So that's why I just moved to that location. What about you, Terrence? What was your reasoning?
I'm kind of similar to you. I grew up learning that, wherever you jump the rabbit at some point, eventually he's going to circle back to that point. So you need to be close to that area where you jumped him. And just from learning about rabbits and understanding that they're the most sought after animal in the woods, they're going to stay close to where they feel the most comfortable at, where they're home at. So that's why I would move there.
Okay. And your reasoning, Vaughn?
My reasoning for taking position on that outside, keeping in mind what you guys just discussed, I would primarily take those same positions you guys took. But my reason for swinging wide like that is so that I could encounter the rabbit if he swings outward toward the direction he is going, not knowing that he was going that way. But my thinking is not letting the rabbit get by the hunting party.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of, go ahead, Charles. I was going to say a lot of the terrain that we're in dictates kind of how you would move at certain times. Keeping in mind, this is it's kind of like a thick, congested area. So we're able to get a little closer to one another than we normally would be if it was, say, perhaps open territory. That makes sense.
Yes, that definitely makes sense. Well, this discussion is to just try to shine light on any and everything that, any one of us may see that may be something to consider. I know I didn't move initially. The three of us, James, myself, and Terrence, decided not to move initially. And then when we did move, we kind of moved in a short kind of like proximity of where that rabbit was jumped from. Now, the only thing I could see that could, now, of course, Vaughn, as far as that move, that's kind of like flipping a coin, I would say, because prior to knowing that he turned right, your first initial move was to go that direction. that rabbit could have very well, I'm gonna draw it out. He could have very well did that. And I mean, you're over here. So, but just knowing exactly what has taken place, because we're using an illustration of the route that the rabbit took on our first hunt this past hunting season. So that would have been the right move, based on what that rabbit did. But I've always been taught to kind of know what direction he's going to turn before I really commit to a certain spot.
Yes, and I understand that. Even if that rabbit would have swung to the left, I would have positioned myself to the right of top of the right of Terrence, just to ensure that rabbit didn't get by us going to the right. I would think if it was to the left, that would be James' responsibility to knock that down, because he's next to that road. I would expect him to get that rabbit and not let him swing around to the left side of us.
Gotcha. Well, based on positioning, that's definitely a way to look at it, because you are the last man there, and you kind of like a safety net. So you kind of like a rover to a degree. You decided to kind of cover an area that needed to be covered if he went in that direction. But like you said, you were just kind of leaving this left side to us because we're closer to in that direction. So that definitely makes sense. So at this point, okay, we're gonna carry this rabbit on a little bit. I'm gonna make a loop with this rabbit, because this particular rabbit on that day made 2 loops. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw the first loop out. So that rabbit did something similar to, this. Probably didn't come right on top of you, Vaughn, because you would have probably saw him. So that's somewhat, we definitely have another page that showed how the rabbit traveled, but I'm just kind of showing this to see if, and he made 2 loops. So he got by all of us on the first initial loop. So after that rabbit got by on the first initial loop, would you move anywhere else, James?
Yes, I typically after the first loop, I move about 10, 15 yards inward. Typically, from what I've seen, the second loop is the circle is tighter.
Okay.
But I still like to maintain where I could still see his path track, because I have seen rabbits go right down the same path the second time. But typically, the second circle, from what I've seen, has been a little bit tighter than the first loop.
Okay. So go ahead and make that move. Okay, not far at all. Now, I would take the position, I would do something very similar to what James just did, and I'll explain why. I would possibly move just a little further in as well. And my reasoning behind that would be, and when I say inward, that move will be based on where those dogs took him through, right outside of my line of sight, or however he got past me. I would try to get closer to that area, because in my experience, once they get through a spot, they feel comfortable taking that same route if they have to come back through there again. So, and they also like to lay what I call a double track. They like to run over their old track to kind of confuse the dogs. So I would get wherever those dogs took him to, or get a little bit closer to that area with anticipation on, if he makes it around again, he'll run in that same vicinity because he's familiar with it and he made it through the first time, and he thinks that's a safe route to travel again. What about you, Terrence?
No, I would stay in the same position. I wouldn't move. I would stay right where I'm at because I feel like he's going to come back to that spot.
Okay. All right. Vaughn?
Yeah, I initially, I had a big move initially, so I wouldn't venture off too much more than where I am now. If so, I would maybe move slightly to the right as you guys did up there. Keeping in mind that rabbit had got by me the first time, the first loop he made. And just like Terrence, he should be coming back through there once more again. So now that we have our hunting party aligned, we should kill that rabbit coming back through.
Okay. Something that we neglected to kind of mention at the very beginning. And this is, I think, something that everyone should try to practice at home and amongst us as well. When we do make those first moves, we are away from where we were. And for us to know everybody's location, we typically, different cultures, different backgrounds, say different things. We just, holler out, hey, I'm over here, or whatever the case. And that's when that rabbit, I'll kind of explain when you do all these things. That's when that rabbit has decided, I don't know if you guys see me, this would be the first loop. I'm just kind of just showing an illustration. When that rabbit has gotten by us and made this move right here, Vaughn is over here. If Vaughn, as an experienced hunter, he's nowhere in the line of a gun, I mean, he's 200 yards over here. He don't necessarily have to say anything because it would spook that rabbit. He's made the move when that rabbit was right in this area. So he's over here already. But as far as us three, if James, you're there, yeah, I'm here, and Terrence, you're here, we need to communicate. We need to know where we are. And safety is number one. So that's the reasoning behind it. So every time you move, you need to let your party know, the people that you're with, that I have moved, I've repositioned, so that everyone would know the direction they can and cannot shoot. But yeah, so let's go to 5, guys. All right. Okay, so we're all here. Okay. At the end of the day, this is what took place that day. That rabbit made 2 initial circles. Now, based on what exactly took place that day, is that I had to run back to the camp house. I was on my 4-wheeler, so I had to go pretty much where my 4-wheeler was parked, where the truck was. So I had to pull out, go back to the camp house to get a battery for my camera. So I wasn't there for the initial circle. I pulled away. But when I pulled back up, I realized that the dogs were, I'm gonna use red for the rabbit. The dogs were pushing the rabbit somewhat in this area right here. And this was the second loop. They had made the initial loop, and I think they were on this little tighter loop. They were on that second loop. But what my concern was is that this is a major highway here. This is a highway. So I wanted to come here to protect my dogs, our dogs, from getting hit by a car. That was my main reasoning for going in that direction. But what happened is that the rabbit went up here and he turned and came back. And I ended up shooting him right down here by the road. He pretty much ran 15 yards off of the road. So there are reasonings why you make certain moves. But if that highway would not have been there, the first group of movement that we made on page 4 would have been the scenario that I would have taken. And I think in time, because this is such a thick area, is the reason that sometimes they get by the first time. What I've noticed with a good group of hunters, you can typically kill him on the first circle, if not the second. Very seldom do they get away when you got guys on the same page. But what I have also noticed is that some guys move at the wrong time. I was taught to make a move, get there, and stay still. Rabbits are, especially if they in thick environments, they can get ahead of the dogs, and they sometimes tip and smell their way through. They're not always running at a full speed. Now, when you're running with an open territory where the dogs are really close to them, they typically run a faster speed. But in this environment that we were in, they can get out 100, 150 yards in front of the dogs, and they'll get up there and they'll start easing through. So you have to be still, not moving, and looking. So that's what I've noticed. Some guys, if the dogs are 50 yards away, they want to try to move to a better location, and it's too late at that time. Even 100 yards, that if the dogs are 100 yards away, the rabbit could be on top of you, so that's what I've noticed. Anybody got anything to add?
I have one thing. And keep in mind, one of the reasons why Charles is doing this is because we all have our different ways of hunting. And in my experience, being a military guy, I've hunted quite a few different places and, seen a lot of different ways people hunt. But typically, I attribute us missing that rabbit because that was the first time that we all hunted together. And a lot of times I was a little apprehensive about, moving certain areas and not knowing how one of the others would respond or what position they would be in. And I attribute that's why we missed that rabbit the first time around. And like Charles said, we typically could have got that rabbit on the first try based on the terrain and so forth. So.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. And I guess that's the big picture here. We're just trying to kind of put emphasis on that no one hunts the same. People hunt similar. We understand how to go kill a rabbit as individuals, but when you come from different places, different locations, different terrain, and different upbringings, we're going to do things differently. But the goal, as far as what we're doing today, is to try to shed light on the understanding that's the reality of it. And if we keep safety in its forefront, that's the main thing. And on top of that, understanding how to move and when to move, because the objective is to kill the rabbit. And if you don't position yourself in the right location, you're going to wear your dogs out. Dogs are not meant to run rabbits for hours and hours. That's not how it should be. So it's a team effort. Dogs and hunters, they kind of have to be on the same page. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, Charles, I think you hit on everything that I typically do. First off, is know where everyone's at. And you highlighted that when you said, when you make a move, you let your party know where you're moving. And what Vaughn was hitting on was terrain. I typically, particularly if I'm in an unfamiliar place, I try to get to a spot where I can see. And then once I get to that spot, I do just like you said, I get still and don't move, particularly if the dogs, I hear them coming back in my direction. Only time I typically move is when they're going away. I try to get to my location, and because like you said, that rabbit could be 100 yards ahead of the dogs. So they may be coming back. You think it's okay to move, and you could spook the rabbit or make them turn. So you guys hit on everything. The way I hunt.
Pretty much the same for me too. Understanding where everybody's at, being safe, communicating well. And for me, I don't move too much once the rabbit is jumped. Once he takes off, I kind of get in my position and I pretty much stay still from there. And just try to put myself in the shoes of the rabbit. Like, where is he going to go to escape? Where are the escape routes at in the area that I'm currently at? And I just try to keep an eye on those, where the openings in the brush. And just try to keep my eyes on that.
Yeah. Hitting on what Terrence just said, there are, I take things for granted because I grew up doing this, but, been amongst a lot of different parties. I've seen so many different ways of doing things. I've seen some things that I 1000% don't agree on, because I think there's several ways to do it, but I think there are more effective ways than others. I've been amongst groups where the guys, once the dog jump the rabbit, they start running behind the dogs. Not literally running, but moving with the dogs as they pursue the rabbit going forward or making a circle. Yes, you can kill a rabbit that way, but I don't think that's the most effective way. Like Terrence was saying, out of all the ways I've hunted, I think the sitting back, letting your dogs do what they were bred to do, being quiet and knowing when to move, and like Terrence said, not moving a lot, will get you more opportunities than moving around a lot. It's a game. I look at it as a game. He's trying to survive and we're trying to kill it. And knowing the terrain, knowing the rabbit, there are areas where habitat dictates how they move. Water dictates how they move. Flat land, they move in a certain way. Briar patches, they typically stay in the thickest of stuff. So it's not always a circle. It can be a figure eight. Different rabbits run differently, but their objective is to try to survive. They're trying to, get away from those packs of dogs. And we have to position ourselves in such a way where we can cut them off based on what they're doing. And I know these guys probably first time in Alabama, but I had a little advantage because I know my rabbits here in Alabama. So at the end of the day, when I go to Virginia, I'm sure James may have an advantage there. And wherever we go to different states, when we go and hunt with one another, that home team really has an advantage. But with the use of these units that we have, these tracking units now, it makes it so much easier because they tell us which direction those dogs are traveling. And then we can look at that unit and make that move based on the unit, not just thinking we should go this left or right once they're way out there. Sometimes you have a hard time understanding or hearing the direction. But when you look at your unit, you can really say, well, they're making a circle to the right. Let me get over there. So those are some of the things that I've definitely noticed over the years as far as these units are making it better as far as cutting off a rabbit and knowing your rabbit in your area, that helps as well.
If I could add to that, Charles, Terrence touched on something that brought to mind that, when he typically, after he's jumped, we don't move, but sometimes that rabbit will dictate movement of us. For instance, this happens a lot with swamp rabbits. They run so far out, and sometimes when they circle, they do a shorter circle than where they jump it for, and that would dictate hunters having to move up some.
Yes.
And as a hunting party, we should be moving up together. That's typically how we do it. And I'm sure you guys do it the same way. As a matter of fact, I witnessed us do it during that particular hunt. Yeah. The rabbit got the circling short of the jump area, and we all moved forward somewhat.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of universal. That's going to be everywhere you go. I'm not 100%, but I feel like I think I know the reason behind that. Especially during mating season, male rabbits come from different locations. They come from their home territory to try to find a doe to breed in a different territory. And a rabbit will run and feel safer running in his home, you know, where he's from. So sometimes you catch that male rabbit outside of his home territory trying to breed a female. And like Vaughn said, he'll go 400 yards and then he'll start making that circle in his home territory. So at that point, that's when you have to communicate and say, let's move as a party. Let's move together and go up here and get this rabbit. And that's a good point, Vaughn, because you would just be amazed at how many people don't know that. And they will stay there until the dogs lose that rabbit. And they weren't really giving themselves a chance, you know, from the beginning, because they didn't recognize that this rabbit is never coming back here.
It's a good way to wear your dogs.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're gonna wrap it up a little bit, but before we go, I got a few questions. So just looking at my notes here, like we said initially, it's obvious that we all came up from different places, but just with this conversation, I can tell that Terrence and I have a lot of similarities on how we look at things, but as a group, we definitely, and that is based on the experience. I can tell we have experienced guys here. It's no novice here. I can tell based on what we have discussed today and how you all explain where you would move and why you would move there. So it's obvious that we are amongst a good group together. How many years, as far as individuals, how many years would you say you've been hunting rabbits? I've been doing it pretty much all my life. 3 years old, 4-year-old. I was out there with my daddy from that point to now.
I've been hunting rabbits basically all my life. So I'd say 45 years. I'm 50, so I started when I was about 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been hunting all my life. I'm 30. I say I started hunting when I was probably 3 or 4, and I've never stopped since.
Got it.
Pretty much the same for me. Since the early ages of 5, 6 years old, I was able to tote a real gun. I was out there with my grandfather and my uncle hunting rabbits.
Got it. Well, I tell you what, I already knew, like I said, we had several conversations before we got together this year, but I already knew that I was dealing with guys that knew what they were doing based on the fact that we didn't miss many rabbits. That I think we harvested 13 rabbit and we probably jumped 15. I think. Would that be accurate, Vaughn? James, I'm not sure.
Accurate.
Somewhere in that.
Accurate.
It was 14
that's
to 50.
a high percentage.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and that's a testament to the dogs. Yeah, that's a testament to the dogs. We did our part, but the dogs, that's how, and we stress this, and I stress it on some of my individuals, YouTube shows that I put up, is that it's all about the dogs, guys. Is nothing can happen without a good group of dogs. And for me to have 3 or 4 on the ground, James had 2 on the ground, Vaughn had 3 on the ground. Dogs that have never ran together. It's just that they were bred the same way, same ancestors. They were sisters and brothers and cousins and aunts and nieces and so on and so forth. But you would not have known because they absolutely performed as if they ran and were reared together. So that is one of the pluses that we saw, and kind of knew that would be the case, because if it's built the same, it's pretty much going to perform the same. And that's exactly what they did. I just don't remember a rabbit getting away. I cannot remember rabbit. We're saying 14 to 15, but I just can't remember. Right at the end there, they had a split
that
race.
rabbit.
Yeah,
there was
caught a
one
rabbit.
they caught, and that's the only one I think that we didn't harvest. The dogs got that one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we jumped a few rabbits, a couple of guys shot at. But as far as when they got on that track and ran that rabbit, we kill those rabbits. So it's all about the dogs, guys. Never forget that. For you guys out there that's struggling, it's just a matter of revamping, you know, going back to the drawing board and getting some dogs that will hold on to that rabbit and bring it back to the gun.
If I could add one
Go
thing,
ahead.
Charles, to that. If I could add one thing to that. I've been, like I stated before, I've been hunting a while, and I've hunted with a lot of different people, and I have never came together with a group of people, 4 different groups of people, and dogs ran that well together. By the first time that those dogs went around, they were tuned up and they was on the same wavelength. You know, I mean, initially it was a little rough getting going, but after they got that rabbit up and ran that first circle, it was on for the rest of the day. So testament to the breed that you created, Charles, and what you said is true. You know, you can see the proof. So, and they will see it online through the videos.
Say that again.
And they will see that through the videos that we post.
For sure. We're definitely gonna. We're saying it's an annual thing, and we would definitely at least get together one time. And again, there may be times that 2 of us may get together, or 3 of us may get together, or whatever the case may be. But as far as our annual hunt, we're going to do that, you know, one time a year for sure. So that will happen. And another thing that added to that is that the individual work that we do with our dogs made all that happen as well. You can't have one guy just running his dogs to death and he has a jammed up pack, and then another guy barely, you know, putting the time in. Those dogs cannot perform with the ones that's been on the ground, because it takes stamina, endurance, and everything else. So we had a group of dogs that were all in shape, and they ran the whole day. I mean, on the first video, on the video that we put out, one of the guys that was Mr. Ellis McBride, which he allowed us to hunt with him that day on some of the property that he has. He asked right at the end, when we all kind of wore out, do you think the dogs were ready? You know, can the dogs continue? And I said, yeah, let's try it. And lo and behold, it seemed like they got stronger. So it was not anything, you know, I've gone on hunts where dogs are walking behind the men coming out of the bushes because they don't have anything left. But so that's also an testament to that what we're breeding has stamina, and a lot of guys call it bottom. They have that ability to go all day, and that's very important. Another thing that I've been asked, and I want to just throw it out here for everybody to answer. What shot do you guys shoot, you know, typically, you know, when you rabbit hunt?
On small game, I'll prefer a 20 gauge, and I
Okay.
typically love 3-inch shells, and
Okay.
I use 5 or 6, 5 or
Okay.
number 6s.
Okay.
I shoot a 20 gauge, and I like 3-inch shells as well. Number 5.
Okay. I also shoot a 20 gauge, and I shoot number 5 shot.
Yeah, that's typically what I shoot is a 20 gauge shotgun with number 5, sometimes 6, just depending on the choke, the type of choke that I have in there. And it also the terrain that I'm in will dictate sometime what shot that I use.
Okay. Just to shed a little light on that. I know I came up on 6 shot. I know guys that shoot 7 and 8 shot. But once I did my own research, it actually kind of rolled over from something else. I grew up deer hunting every weekend. I mean, that's what we did in our location, and we shot shotguns. And it was always a debate on the number 4 shot, the number 1 buck, and the double out buck. And of course, all of them could kill, but you know, me being me, I wanted to know the most effective shell to shoot at a deer. And kind of like what Vaughn said, there's always the perfect shot for the perfect situation. But as a whole, I started looking into what it meant to be larger or smaller. As far as the number 4 being a smaller shot, and it might I guess, immature mind, not knowing any better. I thought because the number 4 had 60 pellets in it, I had a better chance of killing a deer. And I remember standing on a log and a large 8-pointer ran directly to me about 20 yards and looked at me, and I shot him directly in his face. Lo and behold, he ran another 100 yards, another guy killed it. Because some of the guys from Florida, they were saying number 4 were better than number 1. So that was my first experience saying that, man, that deer should have been dead, at that distance. And then I start studying buckshots, and I found that the heavier shot has more kinetic energy, and more kinetic energy has a tendency to break a bone further out than a smaller shot. So I just knowing that and applying that, I know if I would have had double buckshot and shot that deer, I would have penetrated his skull, and possibly, shots would have gotten to his spinal cord, and I would have killed that deer that day. But because they were light, they did not penetrate as far because they did not have the same kinetic energy. So that's why I shoot a number 5, because I just feel like it's that all around shot that can really reach out there and hit that rabbit at a longer distance and still penetrate a little deeper and break those bones. So that's my reasoning for shooting a number 5. I mean, like I said, I've shot them all. All of them will get the job done. But when you're trying to tear through briars and get to a rabbit in thick environments, that's when that heavier shot really makes a difference. Yeah. So that's why I shoot a 5. Yeah. All right. And ending this, I want to ask one question. Is there anything that you can say we took as individuals took away from this conversation? And if it is, what was it? And hopefully we can do this again and learn from one another, and also, teach the guys that's out there that's really seeking knowledge on how to do this the right way. But as individuals, was there anything or any light that was shed on something, or something that you didn't do previously that you may consider now, or we're on the same page and we just go forward as we are and continue to be successful?
One thing I took from us being 4 individuals, when we hunted together for the first time, I could see our mindset was hunting party. And I think that was one of the keys to our success. And also priority number 1 was why we were safe, because there was no one out there that was trying to get the most rabbits or anything. That's one thing that's hunting with people that you never hunt before, which is a good mentality, because you saw the way that we moved. There was no one trying to cut somebody else off or anything like that. Once the rabbit is out of my area, if he swung over to Vaughn and then back through Terrence and then back to you, once the rabbit went away from me, I positioned myself as backup. So if when you guys didn't see the rabbit, then I will be that third one up, because I was the one more north. And we hit the ground almost the way our dogs did. We all hunted pretty much similar. And it's almost like we knew what each other was thinking. So I think that was one of my biggest takeaways from the hunt and from this experience.
I wasn't there, to have the same experiences, James and Vaughn, but just from this conversation, and everybody talking about the way they would approach rabbit hunting, I could see that we pretty much all in cahoots with each other, and we all pretty much think the same. And like you said, man, the biggest thing is being safe and having fun, and it's all about the dogs.
Absolutely.
Well, Terrence just touched on it, and Charles said it from the very start of this interview process. Safety is paramount. That was my number 1 concern with any new party that I go into it with, and that will always be that on the forefront of any hunt that we do, because at the end of the day, we want to come back with everybody safe and all dogs intact. And we did just that.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you, having this conversation is definitely a great experience just to be able to talk, because typically what happens is we go hunting for that day, kill a few rabbits, and we go our separate ways. We still don't know, some of the things or share some of the ways we do things individually. So it's obvious that we definitely are on the same page as far as how we approach it. And like James said just a minute ago, I've done this all my life. So I've been around those groups of guys that's trying to cut one another off, who's going to kill the most rabbits, thinking that that's something to look up to or to feel proud about. And what I did realize that day when we were out there together is that I didn't have that guy, because typically it's one guy or two guys that's doing that. And again, all that moving that guy's doing, trying to cut off other people and trying to, get behind the dogs, he's actually hurting the group. Because if you just, like Terrence said, you get to a location and sit there and wait, let the dogs do their job, you can shoot that rabbit and move on to the next. So it was a pleasure hunting with guys that we kind of saw that aspect of hunting the same, not trying to do anything other than take a position. And the goal is to kill the rabbit. It didn't matter who killed the rabbit. Let's harvest this rabbit and move on to the next one and have a good day and be safe and go home. So, but guys, I want to thank all of you all for taking time out to come and participate and share this topic with the guys out there that's watching and some of the guys that want to learn. And I appreciate you all as individuals. And I'm absolutely looking forward to this year as far as what we have in store. Looking forward to seeing these puppies that we have as individuals, come up and show us what their, abilities are. So we have a great future ahead of us as this group of the Brotherhood, and looking forward to it. But guys, you guys at home, again, like I always say, until next time, keep running your dogs.
Hey, everybody.